Well,
We hope we're live.
yeah. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here with us. We have Roo, who you know, and then we have our new friend David.
Howdy, everyone.
Why don't we just go around the room and introduce ourselves? Jordan is here under duress. Jordan,
I was not expecting to be here, but
we're having technical issues, and apparently we can't go live unless Jordan stays. So Jordan's just gonna hang.
I'm just like a mandatory member of the team at all times.
Yes, yes.
Totally fine.
I am Sosa's director of communications, and I do a lot of the undercover work that you see on the show.
I'm Roo Powell. I am Sosa's founder, and David, you're up.
I'm David Heineman. I am a self-defense instructor, big fan of Sosa and all the work that they do, and yeah, happy to get on here and chat about some safety.
I think it's interesting because we do have people that are new to the channel. Because I think right now, so what we're doing is we're posting clips from Undercover Underage, which is the show that followed our work for 2 seasons.
Mhm.
David, that's how you found us. So Undercover Underage is on streaming on Max. It's on Discovery Plus, and then after our 2 seasons, not making a third. So we're doing our own season, our own show called Sosa Undercover. So people might be finding us through these clips, not entirely sure what we're doing. And so I just want to share a little bit about Sosa. We are a nonprofit organization that aims to end child sex abuse and exploitation in all its forms. A lot of that starts online. That includes CSAM, which is child sex abuse material. That includes hands-on perpetrators. That includes trafficking. And you'll see kind of a bit of all of that in our new season, our new show, Sosa Undercover, that is coming out soon.
One thing I do want to clear up,
I'm
we've had
pumped.
some questions about this, is that the show is not scripted. It's like quite literally a docu-series. So we do the work and there are cameras rolling and it just shows the work we're doing.
I will say, I am, I should never have been given a TV show because I'm entirely too sensitive. And when season 1 of Undercover Underage came out, and some of the messages were so mean, and I feel like after years of that, I've grown a thick skin. And then someone called us the Real Housewives of Predator Hunting, like really, and I was like, that is not nice. You have no idea what we do. So I've not grown. I have not grown as a person. I've not grown in my, I've not become stronger as a person. I'm still mad at comments like that.
Oh, someone has a good comment in the chat. Unscripted and not entrapment. Absolutely. Too important.
Very true. Very true. I'm excited to see the next season, even if it is just background stuff, just seeing behind the scenes work that you all do rather than just seeing what I would call like a highlight reel of you actually catching someone is still interesting and educational.
Yeah. So even David, like, what are some of the things that you generally will instruct people on? And I know there's clearly some overlap with our work in the Venn diagram of what Sosa does and what David does. Let's talk about that overlap.
Yeah, so I've drastically, COVID is a big kind of check mark for myself and honestly a lot of the instructors I've worked with the past few years, because that was the pinnacle moment where we saw a very big shift in violence as a whole. We saw a lot more online attacks, whether it's bullying, whether it's, the sex trafficking and stuff that you two are dealing with. As a whole, violence had a massive uptick. And so we had to change our approach, because the other thing that we realized is that once people were able to get back out into society, everyone forgot how to engage with one another. And so now you're having people that are wound up from being isolated that are just snapping, and just, again, like violent attacks are just, we've seen it numerous times, people walking down New York City just punching women in the face, for no reason. Or we're having people that don't understand how to control their boundaries or something, because again, they're not sure just how to handle those situations. So I went personally from teaching a lot of self-defense of like, here's the end result, here's the worst case scenario, let's teach it, to let's take it back 20 steps and let's just talk about how to actually engage with someone. How do we read their body language? How do we have conversations where we can control our personal space? How do we demand that somebody doesn't come closer? What do we do if they do get closer? What signs do we need to pay attention to if this person actually is a perceived threat or not? And that's where we start the self-defense. And if you can handle those encounters well, the chance of you needing self-defense past that theoretically is slim to none. But then once people understand what we call those are like the soft skills, then we can get into the physical stuff. How do I hit you? How do I defend against grabs? How do I defend against kidnapping, stuff like that? But I think a lot of what we focus on personally is starting with how do I just talk to someone in the street? But in regards to just like the way that all this violence has been perceived, it's been beneficial to us because I have a cell phone, I have the internet, and people post this stuff online all the time. So we can actually watch these attacks as a film study, and we can see what body language are these predators or perpetrators showing, how are they setting up these attacks, and it gives us pretty much a written book on how is someone going to grab you. Whereas before, people would be like, oh, that's never going to happen, or nobody would ever do that. And now I have an unlimited supply of attacks that people just post and put online all the time. So I think where the overlap would be essentially how we're talking with people that we don't necessarily perceive as a threat, but is a threat, and how, for instance, kids may be talking with others that they don't perceive as a threat, but in fact are a threat. And I think that's where a lot of people don't understand.
Really quickly, I see a bunch of New Haven shout outs. So 203 gang, hello, you're welcome here.
I actually grew up in upstate New York, so on the East Coast initially. So my whole family, my dad actually grew up in New Haven. So I'm very.
So you're familiar with our pizza game? That's what I really want to know. Well, next time you're around, you'll have to swing by the Sosa office. I just want to answer a couple of questions here.
Yeah.
So yes, it's going to be on YouTube. We'll be streaming on YouTube. You can like and follow us, and you'll be able to see some content. We will have, and we will have some of our longer episodes and behind the scenes paywalled, because those subscriptions, like, it costs money to develop, to produce an episode. So we run on donations only, and I like to say Sosa runs on less money than your local library. We have a very, very small budget, but we're a very, committed team, and we do a lot with like spit and chewing gum and scotch tape. So in order to do this show, we recognize that raising awareness is really important. It costs money to produce a show. Now, we're not producing it the way that they produced it for, Max, and it is the same production company, but it's like these guys are also doing it on a shoestring. So anyway, we recognize that it's raised so much awareness for people. We love that parents and caregivers have sat with their kids and watched episodes of Undercover Underage and just our content on social in order to raise awareness too, or just like start good conversations. Which actually, David, it's so funny. It's a game that I play with my teenage daughters, which I'm sure you'll appreciate, which they kind of appreciate, is we'll be walking into a Target and I'll go, okay, give me the colors of the past 4 cars we passed. Or, like, describe the guy that just passed us on the left. And because I always want them to be aware of, like, I want them to have situational awareness. I want them to have spatial awareness. I always want, like, I have a teenager who's driving. I'm like, you're not walking out in the parking lot looking down on your phone. It's phone in pocket, you're looking around and seeing what's going on. So it's kind of funny how there's certainly overlap.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny on that note, I was talking to Jordan about a seminar we were running this weekend, and one of the things that the instructor was talking about was the spatial awareness. And he mentioned, like when we're in a car, we're very aware of all the cars around us. You give yourself some time in between, you pay attention. You're always a bit more tense in the car, especially like, let's just say it's the middle of winter, right? Because I don't want to get too close to another car and hit it. But the moment we step out of that car, I got no problem walking up and next to any which person, never looking twice at anyone, head buried in my phone. And like, we're so content doing that outside of a vehicle, when that is probably the time that we should be the most alert and aware. So again, simple little things go a very, very long way.
You ever have like lunch or dinner with cops and like we all walk in and like none of us wants to sit with our back to the room? So
yeah, it's like, you take that chair. No, I want this. This chair.
It's a very strange game of musical chairs. So here's a question. When did you start going undercover, and how was the first time you ever went face to face as a decoy? I will say, like, people do see me sometimes on the show where I am face to face with a perpetrator, or like in one episode I had to hug one, and I don't make those moves just completely haphazardly. Like there are things, we're weighing risk, we're assessing risk, risk and reward even, like, because if this person is coming closer to me and I'm able to hug a person, or I'm able to be a focal point for them to look at for a bit because I'm talking, or they see me from far away, what they're not seeing is all the law enforcement kind of coming in on them. So all of that is certainly strategic. Now, there are times where Jordan and I play people who are much younger than we are. We recognize that we're not teenagers by any, stretch of the imagination, but from far away and with a bunch of filters and with a lot of editing and with the context of a kid's room and 30 yards out with, and I'm wearing Kevlar and there's cops in between us, like that. We don't do these things haphazardly, which is, I think, what really kind of sets us apart from maybe some groups who are a little bit more wild west in their approach.
What do your kids think of your work, out of curiosity?
Yeah, so I mean, when they were younger, it was just like, mommy does some work to help find bad guys. Now that they're older, yeah, they are very proud. They're very proud. Sometimes it gets them street cred at school, and sometimes it gets them bullied. So it really it really just depends. It really just depends. They are aware that sometimes it comes with risk, but they also know that I am very safe and so on.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Here's a good question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's the line between awareness and paranoia? This person says, I have a hard time with my son in public school because I'm constantly on a swivel.
Not public school.
In public. Not
right,
public school.
Yeah.
What do y'all think?
I feel like that's for you, David.
Yeah, this is one that we get asked a lot. Paranoia, as I view it, is you're triple and quadruple checking everything that you do, everything that you see. You're not going outside unless you absolutely have to. I'm not going on my phone unless I absolutely have to. You're taking everything to the farthest extreme. Like when we talk about paranoia, you're the person that walking down the street is just constantly just doing this every which way we turn. Awareness is, if you really want to, how I kind of view it as awareness, it's acknowledging what's around you and taking action of what you see around you, and that's it. So if I'm walking to my car and I notice that there's an unmarked van or just a sketchy looking car parked directly next to my car, I'm aware of it, but that doesn't mean that I still can't go to my car. Good suggestion would be, go back into the store and hang out for a little bit, or have somebody escort you to the car, or you have to walk with that sense of confidence, like know that this is there, but I'm going to just kind of walk with that stride, and I'm not going to be like quickly shoving stuff into the car. I'm going to walk up with confidence and just kind of present myself like I'm aware that that's there. I'm not ignoring it, but I'm also not giving it every ounce of my energy to pay attention to it. It's just having that confidence. If you see someone that gives you kind of the bad vibes or whatever, acknowledge it and kind of move on. There is a thin line. I always just describe paranoia as like we're going way past everything. If you want just good awareness, pay attention to what you see. If something makes you uncomfortable, ladies especially get like that intuition, gut feeling. If that kicks in, react to it. Don't ignore it. If you have to put your stuff down and leave the store, the bar, the restaurant, wherever you are, that's just making a smart decision, but it doesn't mean you're paranoid. Like you can still go somewhere else and you don't even have to leave. But now it's just, I'm going to pay attention to that person. If Roo was giving me bad vibes across the room,
Fair.
I don't have to make all these rash decisions, but I'm going to be like, you know what? There's just something about the person that's kind of giving me an icky vibe. I'm going to keep my eye on them, but I'm not going to make like rash decisions and start drawing all this attention, but I'm going to be aware of them. If suddenly they leave the room, I'm going to kind of scan the area and see if they just changed positions or if they ultimately left. If I see them get up from the table, it's kind of like finding where's Waldo, what doesn't belong where you're at. And that's kind of just what you want to pay attention to, but I don't have to make any rash decisions about it. I'm just going to keep my eyes on it and I'm going to monitor the person or thing or whatever it is until I feel that I'm good to go. And that's kind of how I've always played it. If we're out and about and something's off, I'll monitor it. If I feel like, okay, I'm now really kind of getting on edge, my wife and I or whoever I'm with will pack up and we'll go. And that's kind of where the paranoia will kick in of like, I'm now really getting bad vibes. Initially, just monitor it.
I feel like that connects really well to what we talk about with specifically misconceptions about how trafficking happens, how grooming happens, how abuse happens. Because the misconceptions are what keep parents or caregivers from being able to spot it.
Right, but I mean, the
think
same thing would be like self-defense. Sorry to interrupt. Like, same thing
No,
would
no,
be
no,
for
fine.
self-defense, because if I told you, like I update my wife anytime there's something that's going on, and it's not to be like, okay, you're never leaving the house. It's like, I just want you to be aware that this is happening. So if you see something that's off, just put it in the back of your mind and let it sit there. Don't just ignore it.
So a good point about trafficking is, what we do tell parents. I think a lot of us watch Taken with Liam Neeson, and we kind of assume that trafficking ends with kids being stored in cages somewhere, and
Right.
they're taken out and they're forced to do things and they're put back in. But what I want people to know, because a lot of this went around TikTok too, with like these misconceptions around like, oh, if somebody puts a zip tie on your door, that means they're going to traffic you. No, it doesn't. These are like urban legends, like when I was younger, and like tampons have asbestos. Like these all sound like email forwards.
Right.
Kids aren't like traffickers aren't targeting kids at Walmart. They're targeting kids via DMs, and that's actually how it's happening. So we've seen cases where it's like somebody is communicating with a kid in the DMs and they meet, and it isn't necessarily like you are now in my custody at all times. Sometimes kids are going to school, or like they're with their families, or what have you.
Friends or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just also being trafficked. We had actually an arrest and then a sentence, and I was undercover as a teenager online. And I'm thinking about the dealer, Jordan. And he was like, I'm going to help you make money. This is how we're going to do it. You're going to do X, Y, Z, and I'll help you. Like, essentially, he was saying, I'm going to be the one that's, helping you monetize your body, more or less. I don't know what I can say on YouTube. So
we get it.
yeah. Picking up what I'm putting down. And he had made us, like, I had kind of had to go through some hoops to kind of prove I am who I say I am, which is something that our team is very good at. And then finally he was like, okay, so you can, he's like, I'm going to pick you up and we're just going to hang out and we can just talk about this. Like, he had an entire business plan, how this is going to happen. And he sent videos, and it was very clear that this is something that he's done before, whether he is exchanging, like he sent a bunch of videos of him with women of age also, but like obviously women of age are trafficked too. So he was like, I'm going to come pick you up and I have a little surprise for you. I'm like, oh, what's the surprise? He's like, I have a little bit of coke for you. And it might make you sleepy. So if it makes you sleepy, you can just crash at my place for a little bit. And there's no planet where cocaine makes people sleepy. So we had that, front of mind, and we go to do this takedown. We're meeting at a park, and I'm like, there's proof of life along the way. Like, here I am, I'm at the park, here are my boots, here we are, like, ready for you. He shows up, and this part is conjecture, but he shows up and he sees that there are police there, and he's boned. And the theory is that he took the drug that he had for me and swallowed it. He ended up having a medical emergency. He was like non-responsive while he was being arrested. Paramedics had to come. He had to go to the hospital. He had to, and it was whole thing. And he ended up getting charged with, I actually have these charges here, but like trafficking a person for sexual servitude, furnishing obscene material, criminal attempt to commit a felony. And his goal wasn't to, like my decoy, his goal wasn't to kidnap me. It was, here's what you're going to be doing. I'm going to be pimping you in this manner. I'm obviously going to be drugging you. And like, this is going to be a lucrative business for me. And trafficking can happen like that. And this was just a little town in Georgia. This is not just like something that's happening in like Latvia or wherever.
Right.
And he was talking about it like, oh, I'm going to help you
Not
since you aren't able to do this on your own. Yeah. Not like, you are going to do this.
So how quickly, like when I do a lot of work with survivors of sexual and domestic violence. A lot of time spent on college campuses working with survivors on, getting assaulted at parties and whatnot. And from what I would see in those cases it was either as the perpetrators would attack these women by either drugging them, getting them highly intoxicated, and just taking advantage of them, or they would go the longer route of gaining their trust, starting to date them, whatnot. And then again, you would have kind of some of the gray areas where both parties are intoxicated, or you would have it where they would take full advantage of their girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, whatever, just because of that long-term relationship. But my points being, in those cases, because they are adults, it's not something as simple as I can just come to you, Roo, right away and just start grooming you. It's a longer process. So from a child's perspective, and I don't know, because it's hard sometimes to see obviously what's portrayed on the show, how quickly are these perpetrators actually coming out and saying, hey, little kid, I want to have sex with you, or is it a longer built-on process?
All right. To be very honest, sometimes it's right out the gate within the first 3 messages, right?
Which is
Sometimes,
insane.
yeah. We've had our biggest turnaround in this. Okay, so when we have a potential sex work case where it's like someone's being trafficked, those turnarounds are faster because it's often it's transactional. But even when it's not transactional, I want to say our fastest case from first message to arrest, where he was planning on, sexually assaulting this girl, an hour 45, Jordan?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, an hour and 45 minutes.
That's insane.
And that includes like his hour of driving time or whatever, to get there.
Yeah.
That's insane. And how
But we also see situations where, especially when it's a younger decoy or, a younger victim, where the perpetrator will spend months and months and months building that relationship so that he can feel more certain that that child will not report him or speak up about what's happened.
Well, then the follow-up is, and how are you finding, without giving away stuff, how are you finding these chats?
Okay.
Like, can I just make like a Snapchat profile and just start snapping people and somehow I'll pull someone in? Or
this is the worst part of it. If you and I were in the same room, David, I would say, give me your phone. And then I would just go boop, 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 boop. And I'm like, give it like 60 seconds. Let's be liberal about this. Give me 5 minutes and you will have a dick on your phone.
But like, what are you? No, I get it. But like,
David, you are a 14-year-old girl. You are nothing. Hi, I'm a 14-year-old girl and I like my horse. Hi, I'm a 14-year-old girl and I play volleyball. I'm a 14-year-old girl and I love Taylor Swift. Yeah, and within minutes.
It's just existing online.
Yeah. That's why I say it's never about being a good kid, a smart kid, a bad kid, or whatever. It's just about being a kid people. On the internet.
Well, so this is what pisses me off, and I don't know if you all feel the same way. The biggest thing that I get from self-defense perspectives is, and this is a lot of times for people's reasoning for not wanting to train, is, well, that shouldn't be the problem. The problem is we should educate men to not assault women. We should educate people not punching people in the street or robbing people or this, that, or the other thing. And I'm like, at the end of the day, it's bad people. Bad people are going to do bad things regardless of what you want to do. So instead of trying to change bad people's behavior, why don't we just accept what's happening and do what we need to do to prepare for whatever the bad things. Like, I don't see an end to trafficking anytime soon.
Well, I feel like it's a yes and, right? Like, both things can be true. It can be true that we need to raise awareness. It can be true
I agree with.
Yeah.
100%. My problem is when people are saying the awareness is a solution, so I don't need to do anything else, because if we just bring enough awareness, I don't need to learn how to protect myself. My kids are going to be fine. They don't need technology. Everything else will be good and dandy because we're bringing awareness. I think bringing awareness gives us more resources. But
yeah. As a parent, I totally understand the compulsion to kind of put your head in the sand about it. I totally do, because it's rough. And I will say that what you talked about with like gut feelings, like that's the biggest thing that I think, like if you're a parent listening right now, the best thing you can do is teach your kid to trust their gut and also have a relationship with you where they can say, hey, that felt weird. That felt wrong. That felt gross. I'm raising my hand on this one. And so that is that I do think that's really important. Now, another important thing is, like, I think people are really easy to blame teenagers for, like, well, look what she posted on Instagram. She posted a photo in her swimsuit. Yeah. We all post photos in our swimsuits on vacation. Like, and it's not just Instagram. It's not like these specific platforms. It's any platform where chatting is a capability. And I've said this story, if you've followed me for a while. I'm sorry that you have to hear this story over and over again, but I was consulting with this tech company and they're like, we're having a real issue with predators on our platform. Can you help? And so we're talking about this specific platform, and it was a coloring book app. I like when my kids were little, I would have no problem downloading a coloring book app and like giving it to them to sort of play with for like 20 minutes or whatever. And the idea that I think people are like, oh, are kids only hanging out on XYZ? No, I mean, Jordan, it's been what else? Makeup apps.
The Bible app. I mean, literally.
Well, and I saw someone actually just talked about there's another app and there's like a whole network on there of people like talking about women that they've assaulted, posting pictures, posting videos, posting how they did it, why they did it, and it's just like people sharing these stories, and someone just happened to like stumble upon this conversation, but it's like a massive community of, you know, rapists or whatever that are on there just chatting about it. Like the stuff exists out there.
Yeah, same with, you know, I've gone undercover into communities that sell CSAM, where I'm a buyer. And CSAM, by the way, stands for child sex abuse material, what is often legally known as child pornography. And so people are like, oh, it's so hard to get, like how are you even finding this? You just kind of go in a room and it's there and you just start negotiating. So yeah, that's
Yeah, I've got two officers that train with me. One's a detective, but they both work in sex crimes. And so their job is exactly that. And again, we're in the nice suburbs. So, you know, like during the holidays, you know, hey, how's your holiday doing? So go. Holidays are busy. People are up and running on the internet. It's a busy time for all the people sharing things. So yeah, it's not a cool, fun feeling by any means.
We did an operation. We had an op when it was close to the holiday. That was Operation Nutcracker. And we had
I love the names. Solid. You all can nail the names pretty damn well.
Yeah. So we had and there were quite a few there. In fact, we talk about grooming. One of those ended up being like a 5-month case, which was long and arduous. But yeah, sometimes these are quick flips. Sometimes it's longer. I mean, sometimes these guys range from being like, hey, this is a crime of opportunity, I'm going to hop on this really quickly, versus like, this is what I do. This is what I do, and I am grooming these people. And you can't really see, and I'm going to try to turn, but like, you can see like part of our perp wall here. Some of these guys have been doing this. I can't turn it without breaking my computer. Some of these guys have been doing this for a really, really long time. And some of them, like, we catch them in the beginning of their career as perpetrators. Some, like, we catch them in like, holy hell, they've had this entire, you know, path of victims they left behind. So for us, it's just kind of important to be aware that it can be really anywhere and it can be anyone. A lot of these guys, I would say, are really normal, maybe even conventionally good looking. They're in front of me.
Kids.
Yeah.
I mean, family.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing we see it when we talk about like what do people view as a bad person from like an adult's perspective. You get a variety of answers, and it just depends. But it's not what anyone like envisioned growing up of like the bad person hiding in the bushes. It's now the husband of 20 years, or your teacher, your soccer coach, you know, whatever.
I mean, teacher, coach, data free, Department of Children and Family Services worker, like cop.
People that have resources, people that have positions of power, people that have good charisma.
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably find characteristics among all of them that are very similar to an extent.
Well, I remember one of my first arrests, you know, it got a lot of press, it got a lot of news, and people were like, but he's good looking and he served our country. And like, I know him, he's normal, and like, he's so attractive. I'm like, yeah. And also, if I shared all the things he said and did, like, you know, I can't.
Right.
But if I did, you know.
Now for the people that don't just come out with a dick pic right out of the gate, what are some of the things that you see from their perspective of trying to groom the children, where it's not so just, again, I'm going based off of what you've posted. Sometimes it's very to the point, and others it's kind of very, you have to kind of infer it. So for the guys that are in it for the long run, what do you kind of see that we can learn from?
Okay, so one tactic I think would be normalizing getting kids to say yes. And so, like, let's say I'm a perp, I'm grooming Jordan, and I'm like, hey, Jordan, how's your day going? And she tells me it's good. And I'm like, she tells me she's having dinner. I'm like, oh, what are you eating for dinner? She's like, oh, I'm just having a sandwich. I'm like, oh, take a picture. I want to see. That's normal. Sure. Okay. So she takes a picture and sends it to me. I'm like, oh, that sounds really good. Next morning, I'm like, oh, what are you wearing to school today? Oh, I'm just wearing, jeans and a sweatshirt. I'm like, oh, that sounds cute. Take a picture. Let me see. All right, yeah, that's pretty innocuous. It's just a picture of my outfit. So takes a picture and lets me see. Oh, hey, I know you've got school. Why don't you text me when you're out? Oh, text me when you're out of practice. Make sure you text me before you go to bed. And so what this person is getting her used to, I'm getting Jordan used to saying yes to me. She's just going to keep saying yes to me because everything I'm asking is so normal. Oh, you have a little sister? What's her name? Oh, okay. Oh, do you think that, if you do you like this movie? What movie are you watching right now? Take a picture of the screen so I can see what movie you're watching. So then at some point I go, why don't you take a picture for me in your underwear? Like, what's the big deal? Because
You've been sending all these other ones.
If I went to the beach and you went to the beach, and I would be seeing you basically in your swimsuit, which is underwear anyway. So just take a picture of yourself in your underwear. Like, what's the big deal? And at this point, I've also said that, I care about her. Jordan, I care about you. I think you're so smart and you're so special. And we're developing this relationship, and I haven't really asked for anything weird yet. And then when I ask for it, I keep asking for it. And then it becomes more. And then it becomes this really kind of domineering relationship, an abusive relationship. So that's definitely an example of one.
Yeah. All the conversations I get to have with my son as he gets older.
Well, and that's the thing we talk about a lot is some people assume it's just girls who are abused, and it can literally be any kid.
I had the first male victim that I worked with in college was actually assaulted by his fraternity brother for just over a year before he realized what was going on. And I was friends with both of them. I was close friends with the one that was doing the assaulting was my peer. I don't even know how to say. He was 2 years older than me. So when I was prospecting at the campus, he was the one that gave me a tour and everything. So he and I were super close. And then I became good friends with his fraternity brother just from working out at the campus gym or whatnot. And so when that case broke out, the kid who had done the crime was just acting like it was no big deal and just nonchalant, not admitting to anything. And then he ended up serving 40 years because of the crimes.
Wow.
But it was crazy to just see. That was one of my first big exposures to seeing it from a predator's perspective of just, I've been friends with this kid for years. I've gone to parties with all them. Not once did that ever shine through. But the moment it did, everyone was kind of okay, yeah, this could have been a little weird, or that was a little weird, or yeah, maybe these interactions were a little off. And it was a very similar, not saying that he was grooming other people because he had only done this to one person, but a lot of his behavior could have been viewed in that sense of, I'm just going to become friendly with you, to where essentially what he was doing was drugging because they were roommates, was drugging him and then just fiddling with him while he was asleep and videotaping it. While he was passed out, and the kid stumbled upon the footage on the computer when they were working together on a project and found footage of himself on the kid's computer. But that type of behavior of I went to lunch with this kid on a regular basis, we did school projects on a regular basis, and that kind of stirred my interest in wanting to pursue that type of work a lot more, just from seeing that's how easy it is for someone who was a idolized student. Good grades, involved in everything, good-looking kid, active. Everyone loved him on campus, president of the fraternity, all this stuff. And behind the scenes, he was doing all this.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, it really can be anyone. And I mean, it's awful to hear about, but I think it's an important takeaway for people to understand that it's not just somebody that looks like a bad guy out of a movie or a troll under a bridge or some sort of monster. It can be.
Right.
It can be anyone. I know we're over time, but this was a really good conversation. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Yeah. Thank you for being a part. And I hope all of you have a really good day. For the questions that we didn't answer, please, make sure you're following us on Instagram, or make sure you're following us on YouTube, because I'm sure we'll do more of these soon.
Thank you so much, David.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Bye.